Hey everyone, I was hoping to get this message put together sooner, but things like this unfortunately take time to set up. I just want to say that the acts of war against Ukraine break my heart, and I know as a prior service member myself that my thoughts and prayers go out to everyone who's fighting the fight that they really shouldn't have to. That being said, we have been working behind the scenes with all of our podcasts and podcast partners to put a fund together in order to pay for any refugee housing and other needs that go alongside that, like food, water, and any clothing needs. Internally, many podcasts in the Hospitality FM network have voluntarily given up sponsorship money in order to donate to the cause and are working on a unified message in order to spread throughout all of our podcasts. So, this is me calling out to all of our property manager friends, industry experts, and anyone knowing of those providing lodging for Ukrainian refugees seeking safety. You can contact me directly at will with one L, WIL at slicktalkmedia.com. We have an internal document that is being updated in real time. So if anyone could share this message within your network, we greatly appreciate it. I'm also placing in the show notes a link to our GoFundMe and landing page for Rentals to Rescue. That's rentalstorescue.com, where we're putting funds together in order to, again, provide finances for any of these lodging and relocation needs. So thank you so much for tuning into this quick message. I hope you guys are all well and safe, as I know we have tons of listeners in Ukraine and other countries in Europe. So thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope you guys enjoy this episode. All right. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
Ready to do this thing?
What is going on?
Michael, do you have beer today or coffee or anything?
I've got some sparkling water.
Sparkling water.
And pizza box next to me.
And a pizza. Golden, you got your coffee?
You know, I just have water right now. I probably should get one, but maybe after the show.
All right, gentlemen, we're back. It's another beautiful Monday morning or Monday afternoon.
Monday afternoon.
We got a fun topic today. A lot of our first three episodes have kind of led to this moment. We've talked about COVIDpreneurs and trends and subscription travel and recovery and all these other things. And now we're seeing lots and lots of news going towards, travel's growth and people feeling more comfortable and kind of like the post COVID-19 world. So I'm excited to talk about this with you guys. We're seeing, airlines picked up about 10% with the Pfizer announcing, a 90% effective COVID-19 vaccine. So I'm kind of curious to just start off the podcast and the live stream with what you guys are thinking. What's going on? Like, what do you see this transpiring to?
Yeah, I'll kick this off, Michael, if that's all right. So I think it's an interesting place that we're in. The world is so eager and ready to travel and sees the promise of the near future with travel, coupled with last week the UK going back into pretty strict lockdowns in other parts of Europe. And then coupling that with, I was down in Florida over the weekend, and in Florida, basically the virus doesn't exist down there, it seems. There's no masks, there's no social distancing. It's more or less life as we knew it in 2019. And then, it's kind of weird to see all of these three things happening pretty much the same day. Where I'm talking with friends in Europe or in London who have hunkered back down for the next month, and no more trips to the bar, no more, social gatherings or anything like that. And then the news of the vaccine and how much that's triggered the hope of the future. And you can see that in the markets today. Delta's up 20%. Norwegian Cruise Lines is up 25%, Marriott's up 20%. Like everyone's eager and ready to travel, and just waiting for some good news. And I think at least for those of us in America, that good news seems to be right around the corner. Whereas I know it's probably hard to see through the fog, this being the first Monday back in lockdown in parts of Europe. So, Michael, what's your take on some of that? 'Cause you probably have very different views or lenses on what we're seeing.
Well, first it started with the news which just came up that Bodyfuck and if you see what happened, you just mentioned, I saw just KLM 32% up. And so I think a lot of people get hope again. I think that's also really important. People they only see messages about how many people how many cases, how many people die, etc. So people it was only going up, especially here in Europe. It was going up. A few days ago was the highest numbers of cases ever. So it keep going up. And I think now like a message like this gives people a lot of hope. And people say, okay, there's might be a light at the end of the tunnel. So let's hope it will proceed like this and people get hope. And here in Europe, almost everything is into lockdown, right? I went to the mountains in the weekend. I just really had to escape from home, and you see everything on your road. It's closed. It's silent. And we went for a walk, and then there's a castle, and it's even completely. You can even come closer. That like they're doing everything to avoid crowd. It is weird, right? So I hope things become now. People get more hope, and the vaccine will come as soon as possible, so people can travel again. And I think today is important. People see the hope again. So let's make sure it will happen. More and more people around you see they're getting it, right? So it is scary stuff that's happening, but I think now we see some hope, and that's super important. And lockdown, I think people now they're getting really tired of sitting at home, and they want to get out. I think the people listening now in this podcast and all of us, we're in this business because we love hospitality, we love travel, and I'm just so eager and just can't wait to travel again. So let's hope. I think hope we all had for a long time, but now it seems to be everything come back to normal maybe sooner than we were thinking.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think for me, I'm such a social creature that lockdown was cool for the first 2 or 3 weeks because I wasn't traveling and I was spending a lot of time at home and with the family. But as much as I love that time, I also need social interaction, and I enjoy meeting new people and going new places. And I think for me, I don't know if I've ever felt more re-energized coming back from a vacation than I am from this one I went down to Florida from this past weekend, because that craving for human interaction was finally met, and then all this news of that the light at the end of the tunnel is there is huge. So I know there's a lot of people like me, I'm sure, that are just cannot wait until the vaccine opens things up and lets us get out and back to normal. I mean, I know a lot of people hate conferences, but man, I love them, and I cannot wait until there's another in-person conference. Virtual conferences are a mandatory substitute, but it's nowhere near what value and joy you can get from doing it in person.
Well, you still think, because as one of the conference I was talking to, I'm not going to mention name because they might change their plans, but I was talking to those guys of a conference, and actually it was also planned for next year, November, and asked them, do you think it will be like a normal conference again like you did before? They said, okay, probably no, because we have to plan those things ahead, and we just don't know how quick we can recover. So probably even next year, November conference will be virtually. So even because they have to plan a long time up front. So I think before conference come back, it will take a while because the whole planning up front. So I think the first conference, even though the vaccine is coming and it might be there in the beginning of the new year, I still think the first conference will take place maybe the end of the year, or maybe even later.
Yeah, I was gonna say we've been talking like for the last what, 7 or 8 months about, the road to recovery, what's going to look like for travel, hotels, vacation rentals, restaurants, all the above. And now that time is kind of finally here. And so it's interesting to see all the procedures and things we put in place throughout the last, 7 to 8 months come into effect, into a full circle. And speaking of conferences, we were all three of us got the light shining in your eyes, Michael.
Yeah, the sun finally came out. Man, it came on strong.
Well, we're all three of us were involved in the host conference, and Michael Ross, you're talking about how tech can enhance the guest the travel experience. Obviously, if we utilize more tech, and then Michael Gold and I, we had a session discussing what we've learned from opening and reopening and what lockdowns look like. And so I think to see it now come to the point of, all right, we've been talking about this for 7 or 8 months. Let's start executing, and that light at the end of the tunnel seems more and more close. And so now it's becoming like a reality. It's not just talk of recovery; it's actual recovery in action, which is really cool.
Well, I think what happened, like lockdowns or layoffs, and people would just they try to reduce costs. I think when they see messages like this, they might look open to again hire people. Not if they were thinking should I hire, what should I do? I think now they have this positive message, so we'll be creating also more employment and creating other work for development. So I think it's really important now that there's some positivity, because for sure there were companies that were just doubting should we just lay off more people or not, and now messages like this could keep their jobs as well. So I think it's good there's some positive news now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's a good point. Companies going through second rounds of layoffs might reconsider. We saw right at the beginning of all this and the first wave of lockdowns happening, lots of companies let a ton of people go. And then, especially in the traditional rental markets, they opened back up and were booking well ahead of pace of last year. And they didn't have enough staff because they had just laid so many people off. And so I think, we've learned some lessons. We'll have to continue to be flexible and nimble for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I think news like this can hopefully help companies predict. Now, how fast does Pfizer get it out, and how fast is it distributed, and how many people actually take it is a different story.
And 90% is not like, it's a high number, but there's still 10% that it doesn't work on, or that is still kind of questionable.
Yeah, if you're trying numbers, maybe 10% of the world has gotten this by now, and it's 90% effective, and the death rate is 1% or less. Like you're talking super low numbers, and if you're still a vulnerable group, then you should probably still be cautious, whether you get it or not. One thing I found interesting, and I'm curious your take, Michael, on both the Netherlands and Poland, but the 60 Minutes did a piece on the vaccine and last night, and only 40% of healthcare workers, I think in New Jersey, said that they would take the vaccine. What would this sentiment be in the Netherlands? Does it differ in Poland? I think a lot of Americans are excited about the vaccine, but also a little skeptical that it was probably the fastest vaccine ever developed, and maybe not tested as in depth as others.
Well, I think it's a bit similar. I don't know all the details of the healthcare workers, but just people are really in general skeptical. The same like me. Like, do you want to take the first round of vaccines, or are you just going to wait a while? And I think it's the same with people in healthcare. So I think everybody in general has this fear. Like, is it good? Is it might work against the COVID-19, but is what could happen after? And even though they now say no, there will be probably no extra. You'll be pretty okay after, but still, you don't know. I would probably not take the first batch, but I don't know how you think about it. But I don't
want to either, and I don't think any of us on this call are the demographic that would need it. neither for our jobs nor our risky people category. So yeah, I mean, I hate that other people will probably be the scapegoats or the tests, the larger tests.
The first batch will go to healthcare workers, right? The same in here. So yeah, let's see. But for sure, people will be skeptics. Okay, I will skip for now and give me the second or third batch or later on. Or
yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you. But so that being said, do you think the European countries or the EU in general is going to require having the vaccine to travel or some sort of documentation?
Documentation for sure that you can just show like a test before, especially in the beginning. It's the same now, right? So this might still be the case that you can show paper that you had the vaccine or that you did a test, whatever, 48 hours before you departure. So I think this will stay for a while because I think still they want to reduce, right? That's why they're closing borders, etc. Right? There's restrictions and etc. So if, for example, I want to drive from Poland to Holland, I can't stay over in Germany. I have to drive in one time. So there's a lot of restrictions still for foreigners, right? So this will remain for a while. There's okay. Every country, and that's still the bad thing in here. Every country has their own regulations. So and I don't know how's in the US if it's regulated per state, but there's completely different rules in Poland than in Germany and then in the Netherlands, right? So it's completely different. And also you see some different trends. In Poland, it was for a long time, it was pretty stable. Of course, there were cases, and now it went sky high if you compare. So it's like 28,000 cases in Poland per day. If you just see, for example, Netherlands, there was a wave, then it went down, and there's a second wave. So there's also some different trends. And there's no consistency in like how they're responding on this. So that's a difficulty. You would say that in Europe, you have your European Union, that you just take some actions together, but I'm surprised this is not really happening so far.
Well, at the beginning of all this, I was talking to a buddy, and it's like, this is the world's best anthropological study. Like, everybody's approaching it in different ways, and no one knows the right answer. Like, only 2 years from now will we know if the things that Sweden did were better than the things in Korea were better than the things in America. Like, we don't know, and we probably won't until we can have a retrospective lens on it. And while it might be problematic or challenging that every country, every city, every state has different rules, it also helps us probably figure out the best way of doing this in the future. If we all did the same thing, and we would never have a control group or different studies going on. So, when something like this happens again, and I'm sure it will at some point, hopefully not in our life, but it's
maybe another 100 years.
But regarding Sweden, indeed, because first, of course, case in Sweden, they went down, and then everyone, you see, the approach of Sweden is perfect. Then the cases went up, and then there were people dying. Like, you see, the approach was bad. And then again, it went down, no people dying. You see, the approach was good. So it's difficult. What is the right approach? Many of us, and also the people who make the decisions around it, they were never in a situation like this. And the only thing is, like in Europe, there is no consistency between the countries. And if you're traveling from place A to B, even in neighbor countries, you can make some arrangements or you can discuss something, right? If you see that people from country A, they can't travel to country B, which is next to it, but everybody from the other country, they're able to let in. So it's a mix. And I would just say take some restrictions to help each other a bit. And it is sometimes I feel like it's everybody's creating their own rules. When I said in Poland, there was almost not many cases in March, and everybody was obliged to wear a mask. In the Netherlands, there was going up, and nobody's still wearing a mask in there because they don't have to. They want to make it obligatory, but people they say, yeah, but as soon as it's not obligatory, I'll not do it. But in other countries, say, okay, I will use a mask because it might help, even though it might help only 1%. I would still do it. So you see also the way of thinking of people is completely different. And this is also what you can see between countries, right? How serious do they take it? If 1% if it could only help 1%, are you going to wear a mask? I would do yes, but there are a lot of people that no. If the case is 99% will not work, I'm not going to wear a mask. So this is also the huge difference, I think, in countries how they're thinking about those kind of things. How this is in the US. Florida nowhere is wearing a mask, but is it obligatory in the US?
In the U.S., it's up to states and cities. So the national government can't make laws like that, but state and local governments can.
Yeah.
And the Florida governor said it's up to the business, and the business gets to make the choice of if people can come inside with or without masks. And at the end of the day, whatever rules you make, they're going to be broken. So it doesn't matter what country in the world you're in. There's certainly societies that follow more rules than others. But yeah, I'm glad I don't want to get into it, but I'm glad the election is over, because now decisions can be made apolitically and actually for the best of the people, and not trying to get reelected or having some talking points for the next debate. So and then Pfizer, I mean, this must have been planned. Like, well, as soon as the president's announced, then we'll say we've got a vaccine, or the study will come out.
Well, they should inform a bit before the press release, because then I should buy some shares. But in this case, unfortunately, I was not in a group of friends of them that they informed me before, because ABC went up and what went down as well. So I will buy some KLMs of 32% up, but yeah, they didn't call me before, unfortunately.
Yeah, nobody called me either.
Well, I'm kind of curious though, like we've talked about like trends and certain things going on in the industry. Do you think this, like, we're going to see a lot of this disappear now with the post like COVID-19 world, with vaccines coming into place and people getting more comfortable not having to social distance as much?
I think a bit also, like, there's more and more people around me, and probably around you as well, who has it now or had it. So I think after a while, when they said, no, actually, I just recovered, it was okay. People's okay. Even though I will get it, I see with my friends, they had it, they're fine now. So at the end, why should I can take a risk. It doesn't matter so much. As soon people in your friends and who recovered and they're feeling good, is okay. Probably the consequences after, they're not so bad. So I think it's also the longer it takes, the people get used to it. Of course, it's still a bit fear, like, okay, how does it affect on long term? That's what we don't know. But
yeah,
I think most important, like, I think hotels and the industry in general is they woke up probably, and they say, okay, we just have to implement some things. Also, if it happens again, Michael said it could happen, and I will not be surprised if it will be in our life will happen again, because we're living so close to each other that it's so crowded in here, and these events and everything, it could spread so quickly. If you see when it landed here in Europe, or the same in the US, as soon how quickly it spread around. So yes, it could happen before. And I think it's good that we are more prepared than we were this time.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, then like it comes back to flexibility too. We've talked about that on the show and a lot throughout like the last few months. So flexibility and understanding that when travel picks up to the, close to, or if not better than 2019 levels, then, being prepared and having these things that we've learned throughout, lockdowns and subscription models and, what the new travel is looking like, maybe will be, like you said, be more prepared and be flexible to implement things faster than we did in, March and April.
Well, a few things what started by subscriptions. We just discussed. TripAdvisor announced it, and more companies, they go into subscriptions. We did already some time ago. So I think this is a trend what will still happen. And the same if you're looking at smart locks and everything related to contactless, etc. Yeah, this will remain, and this will only accelerate. It woke up a lot of people and distribution and etc. So I think, as I mentioned before, that hospitality saw what could happen, how it could be affected. So for sure, they will just take care. I mentioned before, Booking.com was maybe filling their properties before, but they were not able in those days as well. So it's okay. We just have to look at different distribution channels. We'll have to look at maybe different revenue management, etc. So I think a lot of properties, also what you see in different conferences, you both you attending, if you, me as well, you saw really the discussion there was innovation. I think innovation was key, those ones. It will only be still on top of the agenda of many hotels and property managers.
Yeah, and look, it's all hopeful at this point, but we're not out of the woods right now. And I saw something recently that the UK is losing $80 million every single day from a lack of tourism.
Wow.
And I mean, that money adds up, obviously pretty quickly. And when you're saying you'll be locked in for a month, if we're being honest, they're probably going to be locked in through the end of the year. I hope that's not the case, but 14 days to slow the spread certainly turned into 6 months in a lot of places. So I would expect that to be longer than a month, and it's still going to be just crushing a lot of these travel companies until people are comfortable with traveling again. So financially, we're not out of the woods yet. There is light at the end of the tunnel. If you've got a good business and you've got revenue coming in, you'll be able to make it through. But a lot of these trends are going to be sticking. Working from home is going to stick, and that enables people to work from anywhere. And, Michael needs better internet to work from his places. But, a lot of people have done it, and there's zero reason to not, pick up and go somewhere for a week or 2 weeks and work from there.
I want to get your feedback on something. It just popped into my mind actually and surprised me. There was a hotel chain, also in the Netherlands. A friend of mine stayed there last days, and actually they gave him kind of a card with a QR code actually, and you could scan it to donate some money, because on the message on the card was written, "We had really hard times. Corona hit us really badly. Do you want to donate some money?" For me, it was a bit strange actually to ask for a donation on this. I don't know what's your opinion on this, but I was so surprised. And he said, "Well, this really has as well." To be honest,
Airbnb did this.
Sorry?
Airbnb did this where they sent out a note to if I had stayed in your unit, then it said, "Donate money to Michael and appreciate him." And they got crushed.
Yeah.
Public perception of that was very bad, and so they swept it under the rug and acted like it never happened. Look, when I do go out, I'm certainly tipping more and being more open with helping the hospitality space, but that's probably a bit past the comfort zone for me.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Like when Airbnb did that, I know that they got destroyed on the host side and the traveler side, especially with the cancellation thing that happened in the beginning, and full refunds. But I think like Michael just said too, I'm more like I'm gonna be generous with the staff and like with how I'm tipping, and of course like not going to be looking for any crazy. I like just this weekend I stayed at the W in Seattle, and I'm not looking for any crazy like cheap rates because I already know their rates are as low as I can probably find it right now. And so like,
you didn't book a bedroom?
Sorry,
you didn't book a bedroom?
Yeah, I didn't. You guys said you didn't have the biggest U.S. market, so I was just using my Bonvoy points over here.
Okay.
But no, like just saying, like I think.
Are you blushing, Will?
Huh?
I said, are you blushing?
Just a little bit. Nah, I got bid room on my phone. It's all good. But what was I saying? You guys got me all flustered.
Staying at the W, not shopping.
Oh yeah. Like so, but if I was staying at a place and they were asking for donations, I would kind of be probably feeling a little uncomfortable, like not gonna be obliged to do that. But if I'm staying there and like obviously we're in the industry, so we know kind of how hard it is. We know the staff, especially on the ground, like at the front desk or housekeeping or maintenance or whatever, are having a harder than the executives probably are or whatever. I'm definitely more generous in that area, but having a QR code for a donation might throw me off a little bit.
Yeah, no, the same. I was surprised when he sent me. He's like, I think it's too much. It's something what you said. If you just give a good tip or to the people there, I think everybody's gonna do this. This is nice to do, but to kind of was almost begging for money, I think it's not good.
Yeah, well, I'm curious to see how long. Now, when was this that you saw that they had that QR code, like the donation?
Today. So I was really surprised.
I don't see how much longer their doors are open.
Yeah,
They're probably they're struggling a little bit harder than most.
Yeah.
probably seems to be.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a good ending note. Got some good final thoughts out there for any of the audience members tuning in.
Yeah, I think we're not out of the woods yet. There's certainly a long way to go, but the light is shining off in the distance. So I'm certainly hopeful that we can travel again pseudo normally next year. Q1 is probably unrealistic, but Q2 might be a stretch goal. It might be possible. So hopefully all of it gets back to normal, and a lot of the trends are good for hospitality. The work from home trend certainly will help all of us in hospitality long term. So
yeah. Let's hope and let's aim that the second quarter of next year we can start traveling again, and we can meet each other instead of behind our webcams. Just meet each other and do a live session somewhere. Will be really fun. I'm just thinking. What? Sorry.
How tall are you?
187.
What is it? 6'1"?
Well, 1.86.
186. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So
I thought you'd be like,
remind something, because we talked about the video membership actually, and when I started the company actually, we create kind of a promo code. It just came to my mind actually, and then I had to build. I want to make something which I could remember forever, right? So actually, I generated MRFP20. So the people listening now, if you're typing in making bedroom membership and using MRFP20, you have a free bedroom membership. So this is a gift from this side. But actually, why I could remember this code was actually Michael was for president in 2020. So actually, yeah, I didn't become president now, unfortunately, but I'm president of my own company, which is also cool. But actually, I just made this code 5 years ago, and actually, it just came to my mind. It's a nice one to share now after the election. So if people use MRFP20, they have a free membership.
Michael Ross for president, P?
Yeah, for P.
Okay.
It's funny. Just in mind, I built it 5 years ago, this promo code, because otherwise I can't remember. Those things are just a pretty bad memory. So it's a nice one to share.
Right. I'm going to Austin next week, so I will use that.
Cool.
Yeah, my next one, I promise I'll use you guys. I won't go the other route.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
All right. Instant value for the listeners today.